My guest today is Shubhashis Gangopadhyay, an ace economist, an excellent human being, and one of the humblest high flyers I've ever met. Although Shubhashis is not comfortable and indifferent to laurels, awards, and recognition, I will read out his resume because I don't wish to get it wrong. I also feel that it's vital to talk about good people who are moving mountains to bring change and don't feel the need to tom-tom about it. This essentially is the rationale behind my podcasts, in addition to showcasing the good work that people are doing on the ground. Of course, I'm sure Shubhashis will tell me off after this podcast for publicly embarrassing him. Shubhashis is a double PhD. He did one in economics from Cornell University and was awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, where he continues to be a professor. He is the only PhD holder I know who doesn't write a doctor in front of his name. In fact, cringes when you mention it to him. After returning from the US, he worked at the Indian Statistical Institute for almost a decade. He then went on to set up the India Development Foundation in year 2003, where he continues as its managing trustee and research director. He has been a member of the South Asia Chief Economists Advisory Council of the World Bank. He was a member of the Bankruptcy Task Force of IPD in Columbia University. He has published widely in international journals and has a number of books in economics and finance. His current research areas cover policy, finance, and law. Now, this is the most impressive part. In 2008, the year of the global financial crisis, he was appointed advisor to the then finance minister. He was the first person outside the government to process the NSS consumption and employment survey data in the mid-1990s. He has led important government-sponsored studies, for example, those leading to the steel decontrol in India, dismantling of the administered prices regime, the optimal planning of the use of natural gas for the HBJ gas pipeline, untying the purchase of gas stoves from that of gas cylinders, etc. He has worked closely with industry both in India and abroad. Most recently, he has been a member on the high-powered committee on the use of defense land. Today, we're going to talk about his most recent paper, Why Do We Need Social Policy? So at this point, I will bring you in. Shubhashis, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. I read your paper, and at the outset, you've asked a pertinent and thought-provoking question, which I have rephrased as, is society created by default or by design? And that, to me, seems the premise of what you say ahead. So can we start by asking you, what do you mean by social policy?
First, Triveni, thank you very much for having me here. It's I've never done a podcast, so if I get anything wrong, edit it out.
You forgive it.
So, well, you go to various places, right? And I've traveled a lot, and you see the way society is organized is very different in different countries, and all of them have some attraction for me in various ways, but they are not the same, right? So the question that comes up, so are they random, that these societies, and some of them you like and some of them you don't like, or do people work towards making a good society, right? And that's, I presume, what you're interpreting as design. The reason why societies are different set themselves different goals. And that's perfectly okay, because, I may want to be in an environment where people behave in a particular way. You may want to be in a society where people behave in some other way, right? People have preferences. So in that sense, once those objectives are set, then people start working towards it. Right? And that is what I mean, that we are talking Viksit Bharat. Is Viksit Bharat only GDP? Right? Or is Viksit Bharat a society where, of course, economic growth and economic opportunities, the ability to have a quality of life in a market-driven society, right? All of those are essential. But is that all? Is that all? Because if that were all, then people will not be leaving India the moment they have an opportunity to do so.
True.
Right? So people must want to belong to a society. And that's a society one. You don't have to get everybody into your society. But there must be a group of people who want to be here.
I like the definition that you've written. It's very simple and very easy to relate to. You say a good society is one in which people want to continue to stay in it. Quite right?
Yeah.
And we're all aspiring. We're always talking about do things collectively, do things right. And I think it's almost like a community, isn't it? An extension of a community. Mm-hmm. But what do you mean by social policy? Could you give some examples?
Okay. See, the thing is that we always argue, when we argue for policy, we always argue whether it is right or wrong. And that's the long way to look at things. If I want you to do something, I have to do two things. First, I have to figure out whether you want to do that, right? And second, I have to understand, if I do this thing, will she really be able to get what I think is good for her? To cut it down even further, right? When we talk about public policy, oh, that's the right thing to do. That's the good thing to do. That is happening in that society. Why can't we do it here? That's the wrong approach. And that's why I say by design. For example, let's take an example. It's easier for me to explain. I want a society where every child finishes 12 years of schooling. Right? It's a well-defined objective. Now I start thinking, first thing, why do I want it? Just because I have the power to do it? No, that can never be an answer. Even if I'm right. Right? I have to be able to explain why I think. And when I do that, that will have repercussions, right? Across other things over time. Now, all of that I have to take care of so that I can say that, see, if I can train every child in the next generation to finish school, then all these things will happen. If I don't do that, these things may or may not happen, but more importantly, these other things will happen, which we all hate.
So that's your rationale to explain why you want to.
That's number one. Number two, why do I need to do it? If I believe that every child should be educated, don't you believe the same? Don't all parents believe the same? So why do I need to do it? And this is how social policy has been frittered away by this attitude, right? We have privatized education, right? Completely. It doesn't help. When I start thinking the way I'm saying that, maybe I'm wrong, but at least I can see how you need to put policies in place, right? And that's what social policy does. To put it very plainly, when people acting independently and by themselves cannot reach an outcome that everybody wants, only then you make policy, right? Because you're helping, that's what coordination is, right? For example, give you a simple example. If everybody could drive the way they wanted, nobody would move. There would be complete gridlock. Correct. So we make a policy or a law which says that everybody will drive on the left side of the road. And then people can go from place to place. If you don't make that law, every person wants to go from place A to place B, but they won't be able to go. Right. So now you have made it better for all of them. But you've restricted their movement, right? So policy is something that forces people to behave in a particular way. It is your, if you want people to behave in that way, it's your responsibility first to show that the outcome of that would be better for everyone.
Right. So it's uniformity to achieve betterness, right?
I won't say uniformity, I'd say coordination.
Coordination. That's a better word. Coordination to achieve a better outcome. You also mention input, output, outcome, impacts. What is the difference between output and outcome?
This is this is a very common thing among social scientists to categorize things and to try and be as scientific as possible.
And we use them interchangeably at times, which we shouldn't be, because
right.
they mean very different things.
So let me give an example, right? Again, let's stick to education. I am running a school. Now, for that school, I need to, suppose it's a primary school, to keep matters simple. So I have, say, 5 years of kids are in my school for 5 years. I need 10 teachers, say. I need classrooms of this size. I need so many classes to be held. All of these are outputs. Why? Because I cannot blame anybody. They should be under my control. If teachers are not taking class or not giving classes, I should be held responsible. Right? Because whatever is happening is completely under my control or should be under my control. But now suppose I move on to how much are the children learning. That is not completely under my control. There I have to encourage the students to spend time at home, catching up on their homework, get the help of parents, and all of that to make the, because there the kids have to put in the effort, which I don't control.
So that's an outcome.
That's an outcome. Okay. So the difference between output and outcome is that output, I control it. Outcome, not everything is under my control. Right? Yeah. And then you need to be imaginative, then you need to understand behavior, then you need to encourage things, nudge, all that the people that talk about. All those things become relevant there.
The right to education was passed, I think, 2004, 2009. The most recent data you've quoted in your paper, dating year 2023, states more than half of India's population, and I repeat, more than half of India's population above the age of 25 has not gone beyond primary school. And many of them, of course, are illiterate. Now, these figures are quite alarming and equally disturbing. What went so wrong?
Well, I don't know. It's a very peculiar thing, right? Whenever we talk of policy, and since I'm in Delhi, we scream at the national government all the time on education and health, 2%, 3% of GDP, etc., etc. But the fundamental thing is both health and education are state subjects. Nobody pulls up the chief ministers of the states. And quite frankly, chief ministers, given their jurisdiction, as it were, they are much more powerful than the prime minister.
Fairly autonomous.
Yeah. So I don't understand why intellectuals in India, especially those who talk about education and all of that, don't take this fight to the states. And you can see the difference in states where education is, if not a priority, at least better done. You can see the difference immediately.
Where they take lead and
whether it's per capita income, whether it's quality of life, whether it's gender, there is no gender neutrality in India, but at least lower gender bias. All of that are happening in states which have good education.
And if I may compare here, just to support what you're saying, Kerala versus Bihar.
Yeah, that's a great example, yes.
So, and we all want to be around educated people because
though I would say Kerala versus UP.
Okay.
Because Bihar is always my line. Let's not do that.
Right, okay. Okay.
I must tell you the story.
Bihar elections are on the mind, so I guess it came up. But
I must tell you the story that there was one time when there was a lot of criticism about the Marxist government in Bengal. So Jyoti Babu, who was the chief minister at that time, Jyoti Bose, he once said in a rally, "Oh, you're criticizing us for this. Look at our next state, Bihar, where they are." And then, the next day in the papers. So now finally Bengal is comparing itself with Bihar.
Typically how they twist it, but...
No, but that statement was bad. What Jyoti Babu said was bad, right? That's not the way to say it, number one. Number two, the way the media responded
It's an apple and orange. You can't really compare.
No, it's not that. It's not fair, right? You should talk about your own achievements. You should not compare yourself with another and feel good about it.
Yeah, make yourself look good. Yeah, fair point. You also mentioned in your paper that there is a need to have a policy in education. Do we not have one?
What is the policy in education? Get people to school. How many people are talking about that? We are talking about the big things. Why? Because you can sit in Delhi and write reports on them. That's the problem with us. We are all here.
Not on the ground.
Not on the ground.
What about a policy?
I wouldn't say on the ground, because I think that's another extreme, right? Because now we have also started saying grassroots. What are the people saying? You know, there's a book by a famous sociologist, right, called Pankaj Gupta. So he has a book which actually talks about this thing. And he mentions, examples of where things happen because leaders who made those things happen actually stood away from the crowd and made the crowd follow the leader. But the common thing now is to say that this is what the people want. I'm doing this because this is what the people want. If that is what you want to do, then why are you calling yourself a leader? Right? Call yourself a worker who has been told by the employers to do this, and I'm doing it well.
So how should it be done, Shubhashis, the right way?
You see, we are a democracy, so we have an advantage. And I'm again, going back to this book, which I think is a very, something that is worth thinking about, is that if I'm a leader, right, and I think about the people, right, obviously as a leader, I have to do things that are not happening. As I said, so let's go back to social policy. Why do I make social policy? So I'm observing some outcomes. Remember, whatever we observe are outcomes.
Outcomes, yeah.
Right? And those outcomes are the result of various things that are going on. I don't like an outcome. Now, I must first reason as a leader or as anybody, if I want to bring about change, I must first reason, why is this happening? Number one. Number two, is a better outcome possible? And if the better outcome is possible, why aren't people doing it? You know, we criticize economics a lot for its assumption of rationality. But there is one aspect of that assumption that most non-serious economists don't know about, which is that for us, the first question, for us economists, the first question we ask before doing anything is, if I can figure out that this is what Triveni should be doing, why isn't Triveni doing it? Because Triveni is rational too. So we use our rationality assumption a lot there. Because then the next step is, if she is not doing it, it's not because she is not rational. She is not doing it because she faces constraints which I am not seeing. And that is what we mean by grassroots. So then you go down to see, right? Because I am in my world, right? And in my world, either I don't have those constraints or I know how to overcome those constraints with other things that I'm getting, which Triveni is not getting.
So right. Assumption.
So that is the grassroots, thing that we should do. Not to go and, so what do you think? So what do you think? So that's not grassroots politics or grassroots policy.
Got it. Which is what we're doing.
Which is what we're doing. We trivialize every concept.
Sitting in air-conditioned offices, often in Delhi, deciding the fate of others who are facing it on a day-to-day basis without really having a conversation with them.
That's right. Well, parents are not sending their children to school. So immediately think of information communication. They don't know, they have to be made aware. Right? Awareness is a big thing nowadays. But every parent knows that education is a ticket out of poverty. And the poor people know that much more than the richer do.
And
because they don't have any other asset.
Correct.
So therefore, find out why are they not sending their children to school.
And try and fix that.
Right? Exactly. Because that is the constraint they're facing, right? They have to take them out of school. Why? And that only the states can do. Yes, they can ask for money from the center, but they can't just sit back and complain about the money not coming.
or expect the government, central government, to dish out a policy, which then they will just follow.
Or not follow, right? Or criticize, or do this and do that. I think that we have to, if we want to build a society, then that's the grassroots thing that we must do. We must allow the states, or encourage the states, not allow actually, encourage the states to really take it upon themselves to do it. And each state has enough scale. Most of the states have enough scale, right?
Yeah,
because it's very difficult to do piecemeal. But enough scale you have. One of the there are many districts with 10 million people.
Yeah,
right? Which is bigger, even district-wise, bigger than many countries in Europe, right? Which have fantastic schooling systems.
Brilliant. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Finland and Sweden in your paper, which are brilliant examples. In particular, I like the South Korea one, where you mentioned that South Korea and India were growing around the same time. And India may have actually been slightly ahead in world trade and GDP.
In 1950.
In 1950. From then to now, what happened? Why? Why did we get education?
See, Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary, ex-UN Secretary General, right? So
South Korean.
South Korean, yeah. So he made the point that the reason why this century, that is the 50s to 2000, South Korea has moved so much is simply because of education.
And you would think this is a no-brainer.
Compulsory. In 1950, they were also becoming a new country. Then they had the Korean War and all of that, right? But 1950, they made education compulsory for kids.
Right.
School compulsory for kids.
So even though
and free.
And free. So it has to be free and it has to be compulsory and it must be quality. There's no point just giving education,
We'll come to quality later.
Right.
Okay. You meant two things. You said two things over here, which I would like to respond to, if I may. Yeah. So first is mandatory and free. You see, let's look at right to education. Now, the right to education says that every child who wants to be educated must be educated, right? Given an opportunity to be educated. And then the administrators came about and tried to implement that policy by asking schools to have 20% this and 20% that, etc., etc. And then we have these papers coming out that they're not 20% and not in this school doesn't have 20% EWS, economically weaker section kids. That school doesn't have this, that, and all the plethora of papers and things and research that is going on. But the attack is never on the government, right? The Right to Education Act, the government has given it to people. So the government is no longer responsible. If I follow education, or if I say that education is mandatory as a policy, and I'm the government, then the burden is on me to enforce it. If I give it as a right to you, I have no other burden. I only have to ensure that if you don't want to go to school, if you want to go to school, you can go to school. If you don't want to go to school, and you may not want to go to school because you can't go to school, but I won't know that. I don't care for that. There is a school.
So there's a two-pronged approach. One, to provide the facility, which you said as output, and then to assess the outcome. If they're not going,
make it into a policy. Don't do these stupid things of right to so-and-so, right to so-and-so, right to so-and-so, because then you're putting the burden on the administration and on the people.
I was going to say, you put it on the people.
Yeah.
Or we've provided it for you, you're not doing it.
So it's your
as opposed to understanding.
Right. Why do we want education? You see, we do not want education. We do not want to educate every child. Because that country is doing it. Correct. I must say one thing over here. If I look at any report, any government report or expert committee report that India brings out, there is always a chapter which is international experiences. I've read reports of various countries, various different topics. They don't have such chapters. Why the hell are we always looking at what other countries are doing and never thinking for ourselves what our society needs? And that's a big problem in our policy making. We are always making policy because it's a good idea.
But
We
even
are
if
never
you're,
making a policy because I figured out it's a good idea.
even if you're looking at other countries and putting those chapters in, what are we learning? We're not becoming a Sweden and a Finland.
And we
So
shouldn't, we can't.
So what have we learned then? No, but even if we aspire to, because those are developed countries providing quality education, we're not even doing that. One thing is you're saying don't even compare, but I'm saying even after comparing, what is the point? You're not getting that outcome.
See, you talked about quality. Again, to understand quality, again, these are very, by the way, I'm just kite flying, right? So I'm just saying that if I were to build a society, how would I build it? So, what is the most serious problem we face in this country, which the other countries don't? Because Sweden, by the way, had two groups of people. And people don't know these histories, I'm sure, when they talk about Sweden. Is that they rode roughshod over the local population, is what they are called, and it's a word that is not used anymore, but the native population of Sweden, right? So, so there was a lot of homogenization that was done. Now, India's philosophy and goal is different, right? Yeah, unity in diversity is something that we have grown up with, and we want to maintain that. Our 5,000 plus year history, has that diversity built in, and we have survived. So clearly, that's our philosophy. Now, one of the important things that should happen in school is what? I hate you. I don't like anything you do. I have my own ways of doing things, but I still spend 6-7 hours with you every day in school. As children, that's what helps the unity in diversity. That I look at how other people live, I look at what other people do. From a very young age, I started imbibing these, right?
Teaching respect and tolerance.
Tolerance, yes. Yeah. Now, in our school, because of privatization, what has happened is that you have these layers of people and families going to different schools. And that means there is no integration.
When there's no interaction, there's no
interaction. And then suddenly when they're 18 years old, you tell them, hey, we are one nation. Yeah. Can't do that.
Right? By that time, there's too much of us and them.
Their entire life, it has been us and them. How suddenly when they become adults, they'll be, no, there is no us and them, it's all us. That can't happen, right? So that's where those thinkings are not there, because I'm trying to follow Sweden or Finland. See? So that, social policy is not a joke. You're talking about people, you're not talking about nuts and bolts. So if we want to, that's what I was talking about in that paper, that, we need to really sit back and think, what is it that we want?
Quite provocative and, yeah. What about health, Shubhashis? You've also touched a lot about, because, of course, education and health, both are vital and both should be inclusive. You can't just have a population that's unhealthy but educated. They won't be able to perform. So what about a health policy? What's your view on that?
See, educated, unhealthy is the same as unhealthy, educated, is the same as unhealthy, uneducated, right? To put it plainly. Yeah. So when you talk of quality of life, we don't talk about one sector. We don't talk about one thing. Correct. Right? We talk about that entire package, a system that we want. That's why society, right? We want to create a system. We don't want to solve this and that and that and that. No. Yeah. We have to...
Holistic.
Holistic, yeah. So the first question to ask is, why do we need policy in education and health? We don't have policy for buying iPhones. We don't have policy for, well, now we do have policy against all the snacks that I love. But, but certainly education and health, why do we need policy? See, suppose I'm fully uneducated, totally, I'm illiterate. Right. Even then, I would like to be in a society which has good doctors who can take care of me when I'm ill, good engineers who can build good roads and bridges on which I can travel, right? Where you have good sociologists who can, create things for me, in society, design relationships, interactions, and all of that, which actually help, right? So in other words, education not only helps the person who is educated, it helps everybody around them. And this is what we call externality in economics.
I was going to ask you about that term, yes.
So whenever, you have externality in any sector, then that, if people act individually and independently of each other, then the outcome that they will get is always less than what you can get if somebody coordinated their actions. Okay? Exactly like if people are allowed to travel on any side of the road, nobody will go anywhere. And therefore you need coordination. And so whenever there is externality, there is either under provision, that is to say education is less than what it should be, or there is over provision, that is pollution is more than what it should be. Okay. So environment is the result of negative externalities, and education should be with positive externalities. That's why you need policy. Let's come to health. It's exactly the same thing. If you have an infectious disease, I'm in trouble, right? If I have an infectious disease, you are in trouble. TB is an infectious disease, right? People around me will get infected. I have to be treated. So first, I'm talking of curative infectious diseases. But people will say, but preventive, what about preventive? Preventive also needs policy, right? Hygiene. Even worse, administration. Suppose I am a health administrator in a locality which has had a TB outbreak. I do an eloquent, fantastic job. People are talking about me all the time. Why? I rush in medication, I do this, I do that, I solve the problem. I become a hero. Can I become a hero by saying, "Arey, TB to hua nahi?" Right? If I can prevent TB from happening, nobody will talk about me. And therefore, these have to be part of administrative duties. They can't be political. You see, the thing, both health and education, why are politicians involved in health and education? I don't understand. Cleaning the road. Why should a politician be involved in cleaning the road? That's an administrative task. That's why we have a society. That's why we have administration. So we have never been able to, clearly understand what are the mechanics that make societies perform.
Yeah. I want to make a point when you mentioned that, you want to be in a society where there are good doctors and there's etc. But what about access to that? There's no point having good doctors as we do today. But healthcare is simply unaffordable.
Absolutely. Sorry. That's not how I meant it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I'm assuming that I, as a poor person, will be treated by the doctor, right?
Yeah.
And hence policy again, right?
Policy, yes.
And hence government again, right? So if I have private hospitals, the thing I hate is you are suppose you're Tendulkar. And तो बहुत क्रिकेट खेला है तुम, अभी थोड़ा फुटबॉल भी खेलो. That's how we make policy, right? If you are a business making profit, you have to do CSR. The businessman's profit is not to do CSR. You have other things, other agencies you develop for doing CSR. So this sort of policy making we have to stop. So I have to think about, right, how will this poor person get help? I cannot say it's a private hospital, though, 20% beds has to be reserved for the poor people.
It's a Robin Hood way of doing things, snatching and...
And therefore, obviously, there would be corruption. Obviously, there would be hierarchy. Obviously, either the hospitals will travel from pillar to post to meet it or avoid it, right? But it's an unnecessary task that you're giving to an agency or an entity whose comparative advantage is not social policy. So instead of telling government, hospitals should do that, government should figure out a fund, a method, a mechanism to get the poor person who needs care in an hospital to be able to access that.
When you are talking about all this, Shubhashis, it seems like it's such a no-brainer. It's so simple.
No, it's not.
No, but it sounds like, it's common sense, right?
No, this is the approach. The approach is simple. But we need to change the approach. We have fantastically well-trained, skilled, intelligent people. It's our approach that needs to be changed. And for that you need schooling, for that you need education, for that you need community. If everything is my career, why am I being educated? Because of my career. Is this education providing jobs? That's all we think. We are making everything individualistic.
And that brings me to a point that, do we design social policies to create a desirable society? That should be the intent. However, it seems that it's more to do with material progress, is what you're saying. Individualistic, right? It's all about me. I must study to get a good job, and to have a better life, to get out of the poverty circle. So I think we're defeating the purpose here, isn't it?
Think about it. During my time, right, we used to talk to, everybody went for IIT and all of that, many people. Now also they go, right? And if you look at the IIT graduates in the 60s, 70s, 80s, what were their first job for most of the people? It was in sales. Why would you train an engineer at IIT, which is the best institute for engineering training globally, comparable training, right, globally?
Yeah.
That person to sell soaps or even cars.
Yeah, I've never understood, why would an IIT engineer then do an MBA from a Wharton or wherever
and then be
else?
in the financial market. Thinking of it as a system. We did not create a society that can absorb this education.
No, and give them what they need. I mean, we need mechanical, civil, structural, computer. We need all these engineers because there's a reason why that institute has been set up. And then those people, those youngsters going into the institute are almost forced to do an MBA, finance.
That's right, because there is no engineering job, right? An engineering job means what? Actually working with your hands. I remember for a university, we were trying to, and I'll not mention the names of the universities, that would be unfair. So I was talking on behalf of a university, and there was an American counterpart, the dean from that university. We were trying to develop an engineering program, exchange program, right? Where 1 year students would be here, their students will come here, the next year our students will go there, their students will be there, the year after that. So this is back and forth. Right. And graduating finally from the US, because this is a private university, so that attracts the fact that they're going to be on the global job market, right? If they graduate from the US. So that last year would be in the US. But they will study together. And this is a very good thing we are working on. But then it failed to materialize simply because the engineering program, thanks to AICTE, the amount of time they had to spend in the classroom was a shocker to them. So, they have to be in the workshop. They have to work with their hands, right? They have to know how to build machines, how to tear it apart. All of that has to be taught. I think it was 180 odd credits that you needed to take, right, for an engineering graduation, or maybe even more, I don't know. But the university I was talking on behalf of it already had more than 200 credit needed. And they, on the other hand, less than 100. And this is how are we going to create an engineering program that would be acceptable to both the ICT here as well as globally? And of course we couldn't, because we would have not been able to satisfy ICT. Unless we did Hera-Fairy, right? We gave, which many universities do, I know.
I don't know if you watched it. There's a very nice Hindi movie called 3 Idiots.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Which is a perfect and a classic example of what happens in engineering colleges. And that's what Amir Khan in that movie is trying to show by his behavior, that it is so prescriptive. They are not allowed to think outside, to function, to create which is what an engineer really should be doing.
No, but again, this is not a question of they are not allowing or them. Just think about it, right? And these are systems that we have created. It's nothing to do with government.
No, but the institute or whoever's.
No, you and I have created this.
Okay.
I'll tell you
Or the
how.
policy behind it, or the lack of it.
I'll tell you why. Because we don't think as what is good for both of us. I'm only thinking what is good for me. You're thinking what is good for you, and therefore we have created these sorts of things. We are yet to, have respect for the next guy. We don't have respect for the next person. That's the problem in India. See, the thing is that think about how we start sitting on our kids from the first step they take into school. We have parents checking on what they're doing. We have tutors for them. We get them into these competitive things. We put pressure on them. And what is the net result? So the market responds by creating these nice things that they can do. The entire examination body, the teachers and all, there is money to be made if we do these things, because this is what people want. So let's do it that way. You have tutors, you have coaching institutions, you have the way exams are set, the way exams are graded, the way classes are taught. The whole idea is not to think, to prepare answers to specific questions that have already been given. That's how we teach our kids.
Output driven, not outcome driven.
Not outcome driven. Right? Yeah. And the whole thing, therefore, that's the reason why they go to IIT. How many people who are graduating from the IITs actually wanted to be engineers? The parents forced them. Yeah. So the first option they go, and the parents are happy, MBA kar liya IIM se. So that means we'll make a lot of money.
Because that's also what that film shows. Somebody wanted to be a musician, somebody wanted to be a photographer, but it's too prestigious to have a engineering degree, that's from a premier institute. So, of course. And that brings me to the last point.
By the way, one last thing before I'm misinterpreted. I don't think engineers should be engineers alone.
Right.
Because if you look at very many successful people, remarkable successes they've achieved, is because, or by doing something which was not their first degree. And this is where the education system again comes in. And that's what I mean by career-driven education, which is really bad, which is destroying India.
Right.
Which is that education is a training of the mind. So when I study engineering, why should I study engineering? It is because my mind, I have an advantage in training my mind through the engineering syllabus. There is no reason why, because I've been trained as an engineer, I cannot sit down and have an intellectual conversation with a sociologist. But that's the problem here today in India. A sociologist and an engineer can't converse with each other because the sociologist has no concept of engineering and the engineering has no concept of society, individuals, behavior. There are nuts and bolts who do not object to what they are being told to do, how they are being tightened. Right? They are not strategic. People are strategic. So this gap comes about because of the way we have designed the education system. So each discipline that I specialize in is because I figure out in my mind that that's the best way I can train my mind.
Which is why I often just say that when you are an adult and you've been through X number of years of education and professional training, there is a stark difference which comes out in your behavior and interaction between being literate versus educated.
Absolutely.
And that comes from the whole point of education should be learning, opening your mind, not just cramming and result orientated.
And one other thing, it may not be, the good are good in spite of the system, bad are bad even with the system. All of that can be said. But the important thing is, how good is the average, right? That's what systems can try and do, improve the average. And there, if you look at the way, people behave, you'll find very many people who are very, regardless, you don't even know what they're specialized in. but they're experts in what they do. The other thing that we should guard against is this jack of all trades. So engineering, पढ़ रहे हो, थोड़ा humanities भी सिखा दो. 10 subject humanities,
Throw in some
10 papers,
economics.
throw in some economics. अच्छा वो कर रहे हो, अच्छा ये भी सिखा दो. That's not what multidisciplinarity is. Multidisciplinarity means each person must have the ability to appreciate what others are saying who are not in their field. But when it comes to my field,
Be the expert.
I have to be the expert. Over there, I'm not going to compromise on anything. Just look at the Los Alamos project since this movie is out, Oppenheimer. Look at the types of people that were involved. Even political scientists were involved. Right? So that is what we need to understand, that we are training our minds to understand each other. None of the social problems can be solved by one group of experts. Right?
Yeah.
But all those experts need to talk to each other. We had invited at IDF one.
Drop a name.
No, but I'll get myself into trouble with some people.
No, it's okay.
It's a Chinese professor.
That helps.
From Tsinghua University, right? And he was working on environment. So we got him over and he gave a talk. IDF used to hold this A.N. Verma Memorial Lecture. And at that, in those lectures, we would bring in people. A.N. Verma, I don't know if you know. A.N. Verma was the principal secretary, cabinet secretary, or whatever they're called, was the right-hand man of Narasimha Rao. He was an IAS officer, right? And he worked wonders to bring about the reforms, because mind you, some of the biggest opposition came from the administration, because you're getting rid of licenses, you're opening up the economy. Right. So a lot of administrative duties, turfs were taken away, right? So, but without him, this may not have been possible. So we used to hold a memorial lecture till COVID, actually, which put a stop to it. We're trying to revive it again. So in one of those memorial lectures, we had invited him. So he came, and he talked about how China was in his university house, and he was in charge of that group that was looking at urban pollution and urban environment. And in his team, there were architects.
Wow.
Why? Because Chicago, as you know, is famous for wind tunnel effect. Why? Because of the architecture, because of the way the buildings are arranged, which New York City doesn't have, which also have skyscrapers, right? So to understand that, you had sociologists. Why? Because the way people want to live determines the way they will commute to work, and when they will commute to work, and what they will do when they're commuting to work. To understand all of that, do people commute to work, come back home, then go shopping? Or do they commute to work and then on the way back do the shopping? All of those things they are studying. Will India ever think about that? Environment, acha thora scientist ko le aao. So that's the thing. We have to understand that whatever we are observing is an outcome of various things. It's a systemic outcome. Right? And we have to understand that. It is invariably we throw economic solutions at social problems. And economists tend to, take pride in that. It's a dangerous proposition. Not only are we not solving the problem, we are actually making economists the most hated people in the country, right?
Well, you cannot be jack of all trades.
Not only that,
so
not everything is an economics problem. No? It may manifest in some economic, because, people, we are in a market
or a social problem, But that goes back to what you're saying. It's all interlinked. And you've got to have the various players.
The best example is the caste system. How did we tackle it? That's an economic problem. Employment and reservation kar do. So, has it solved the problem? No, it hasn't.
It just causes
But
resentment.
it's created other issues, right? I'm not saying we shouldn't have reservation, but I'm saying that does not solve the problem. You have to think deeper into how to address it. Do other things too. So dowry problem. So till marriage, if the girl is educated, we'll give so much money. Does it solve the problem? There is no dowry in India anymore? Of course there is.
And there's more.
And
The
there
more
is-
educated you
Yeah.
are, the more you demand.
That's what I'm saying. This sort of policy making, and this has nothing to do with the current government, previous government,
Mindset.
politicians. It's all of us, you, me, everybody. Yeah. And that's what I mean by changing the approach. And that's where education comes in. At 18 years old, we are not going to understand this. We have to grow up, because approach is not logical. No? Approach is an objective. It's a goal that I want. So we have to appreciate that goal. We have to agree that that's a goal.
But I'm so delighted that people of your stature are beginning to think like that. Oh, I mean, you always have, but there are more people like you who are coming forward and saying it.
This was
You
always
know,
called a
sorry,
backhanded
sorry, that is not what I meant, Shubhashis. But in one of my very previous podcasts with Vijay Mahajanji, even he's talked about this. Environment, economy, and social. You were going to talk of them as one, not working in silos. And you're doing the same. I mean, you're an economist by training and profession and everything. And here you are talking about social policies, drawing links. And that's how it should be.
Yeah,
It's not one without the other.
It's not difficult. As an economist, most social sciences should be, but certainly in economics, it's very clear. There is a positive part of economics, which is explaining why things are the way they are. And the other part is normative for what to do. Do I like this outcome? Do I want to change this outcome? How will I change this outcome? What is my objective? What is it that I want to achieve? Right? As social scientists, we're always thinking about that. So most good economists do have something to say about the normative part. Right? But to be able to say that, you have to understand the positive part, right? That why do things happen the way they do? If you don't understand that, how are you going to tweak with things? So therefore, it is not surprising. And Vijay is, though he's from Delhi IIT.
And I am Ahmedabad.
That's right. That's what I want to say, that he got a little bit into the social sciences. And plus, he's done remarkable work with basics and all of that, with microfinance. No, I'm saying that, so what he was trying to do was the normative part of economics, right? And because he's smart, he knows how things play out, right? So it's not surprising that anybody who is seriously trying to understand this, it's not, they will not miss the fact that there is a systemic outcome. You can't look at one aspect.
I think at the bottom of your heart, the core has to be intent. Do you really want to bring change? And do you really want an equitable society? If you do, you will think the way you do and the way he does and the way many others do.
I'll just change that equitable into just and sustainable.
Just and sustainable.
And that's what we want, really. And now we can argue about what is just, what is sustainable. But we should not move away from this. We owe it to the next generation, right? To create a sustainable environment. And just for our own, right? We have to be. Why would anybody want to be in our society? Because it's a just society.
And that's why people aspire to go overseas, because, those are the offerings, that it's a just society, there's law and order, there's fairness.
I don't think there is a just society, but it's better than ours. That's how it is.
But like you said, you can
because
discuss.
Everybody I've known who goes abroad and complains about racism. Even those who are doing very well. But when they're sitting down and having a drink privately, they'll always complain about the society.
And the locals there are still not happy.
I'm not happy with it.
So for them, it's still not just enough.
So I don't know why I would go there. Right?
No, but I'm saying that it's all varying degrees, but to a large extent, we all know what just means. We should aspire towards it.
There are certain characteristics of just which we all agree upon. But there are others where there could be disagreements, which I have no objection to, right? That's why we are in a society. But we have to consistently develop the system, right? So if we think this is what we want and not that, then everything must be consistent with that choice.
Right. So I'm conscious of time. And I would like to conclude by summarizing what I've understood based on what you've been saying and your paper has been saying. And there are two things predominantly which jump at me as conclusions. One, does a country become rich because it has provided free education, free and quality education and health to everyone? Do we first become rich? Does the country first become rich and then provide all these facilities? I think it's a no-brainer. Which one is the right way? It's not a chicken and egg situation in the least. And the second is about human capital. I think human capital is the single most important asset of any country. Neglecting them would not just be, would not just have a negative impact on the GDP and the growth, but overall on a country, on its morale, on where they're headed. I think it would be quite damning if you don't give value to your human capital. I mean, if not for them, do it for GDP. Imagine in India or anywhere, if all the citizens are educated, they're all in employment, the GDP would go through the roof. It's a no-brainer, right? So thank you, Shubhashis. Thank you very much for making time.
Thank you.
I would like to share something about Shubhashis. I'm not going to ask his permission because I know he's not going to give it. But I will say that he has done a lot of work with the former Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh. He's had many conversations and meetings with him, those that he's too shy to talk about. And I respect him for that, because according to me, those are makings of a highly professional yet unassuming person. So I would like to say, I think you're a cool economist and an even more cool human being. And I say that on behalf of many people who know you. Did I embarrass you today?
Yes, you did, because,
Thank you. Job well done then.
Obviously, I choose my fans properly.
Thank you.